What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. Alright, so I want to go ahead and continue this top 10 ABA players listing. Just do a brief recap. At number 10, I had Louis Dampier. At number 9, I had Jimmy Jones. And at number 8, I have the Rajah Brown. When you pose the question, who is the greatest Indiana Pacer of all time, I think the overwhelming majority of people are going to say Reggie Miller. And I'm not saying that's incorrect. He scored 25,279 points during an 18-year career, had many memorable moments, took the mantle as the best shooting guard in the Eastern Conference, perhaps in the NBA, when Michael Jordan retired back in 1993 for the first time. Once held the record for most three-pointers made, 2,560. I think he's now fallen to maybe fourth, and he's going to continue to fall as we're in this three-point trigger happy era. But even Reggie Miller would tell you, from his opinion at the very least, that he's not the greatest pacer of all time. He will tell you that it's Rajah Brown. And a lot of people who watch Rajah Brown, even though they're now graying, that watch them, and you have to go by their word of mouth because there's not a lot of footage of Rajah Brown. There's some highlights here or there, and you do see the skill. You see the greatness. You see the hesitation dribbles. You see the pump fakes. You see the ease in which he scores in one-on-one situations. I even seen a couple highlights where he made defenders fall. And you definitely see it. But if you didn't get to watch the entire body of work, sometimes you can say, well, he only played against taxi cab drivers. Oh, he only played against such and such. Oh, it was a weak era, and all that nonsense that a lot of fans like to spew today to pump themselves up. Truth is, if you look at the all-around game that he had and the success that he had, even though his career was brief, which really wasn't his fault because of the fact that he got such a late career start. When we look at his career, he's the most dominant pacer we've ever seen. The numbers aren't the most dominant because he played within a team concept, which was common back in the 60s and 70s. The NBA is a copycat league. The Boston Celtics had 11 titles in 13 seasons with Bill Russell. The Knicks were known for their team play. They had tremendous success in the 70s. Even the Lakers of the early 70s with Wilt, Jerry West, and Gail Goodrich had success. So other NBA teams would try to emulate that. So most of the teams in the 1970s, you saw scoring by committee. Even if a guy was capable of averaging 30 points per game, he played usually within a team concept. But when need be, if they needed him to score in the fourth quarter and be a bucket getter, a guy like Rajah Brown could do that. If, for instance, the offense was stagnant in one particular game, or if he got off to a hot start, then there would be some games that he would say, to hell with the system, to hell with whatever system we're running. I'm hot tonight. I gotta take over the ball game. And that's the type of player Rajah Brown was. Not selfish, but when they needed him to come up big, he would do so. But life wasn't fair to Rajah Brown. And you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. Rajah Brown was born May 22nd, 1942 in Brooklyn, New York. And he grew into a 6'5" forward / guard. And Rajah Brown starred at Brooklyn's George W. Wingate High School. Brown signed to play for the University of Dayton in 1960. when he was 18 years old, but he was banned from the National Collegiate Athletic Association, NCAA, and the NBA, National Basketball Association, when it was revealed that while still in high school, and along with fellow Brooklyn star Connie Hawkins, he had been introduced to a gambler by the name of Jack Molinas, who was involved in illegal point shaving. Brown was never accused of point shaving, and his only crime was associating with Molinas. Molinas, but later on, in 1975, Molinas would be deleted in the backyard of his home in Los Angeles, allegedly because of ties to the mob. With the NCAA and NBA ban in place, he continued to play basketball at Dayton's amateur leagues, and in 1967 signed with the ABA's Indiana Pacers. He was the first player the Pacers organization signed when they were formed. Over his 8-year ABA career spent with the Pacers, Memphis Sounds, and Utah Stars, Brown scored 10,498 points, appeared in 4 All-Star games. On March 11, 1969, Brown set a Pacers franchise record with 46 points in a single game during a win over the New York Nets. That postseason, during the 1969 ABA Finals, Brown averaged 25.6 points, 6.6 rebounds, and 2.6 assists a game in a 5-game series loss to Warren Jabali and the Oakland Oaks. The following postseason, during the 1970 ABA playoffs, Brown was named playoffs MVP after he averaged a postseason career best 28.5 points a game en route to a finals victory over the Los Angeles Stars, in which Brown scored 45 points and grabbed 11 rebounds in a decisive Game 6 victory. During that series, Brown also had a game where he scored 53 points, had 13 rebounds and 6 assists in a Game 4 victory over the Los Angeles Stars. And to my recollection, only 4 players have ever scored that many points in an NBA Finals game. Elgin Baylor, of course, had 61 back in 1962. Jerry West had 53 in 1969. Rick Barry had 55 in 1967. And Michael Jordan, of course, had 55 in 1993. So it's not that common for a guy to put up that many points in the NBA Finals. And yeah, I know LeBron scored 51, but it's not 53. As a matter of fact, in that playoffs in 1970, Rajah Brown averaged 28.5 points, 10.1 rebounds, and 5.6 assists per game. Until Nikola Jokic just did it this year, Brown was the only player, both ABA and NBA, to average at least 28 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists during an entire playoff run and win an NBA championship. And yeah, LeBron's never done that. LeBron's never averaged 28, 10, and 5 during an entire playoff run and win a championship. Rajah Brown would go on to win 2 more championships with the Pacers. The NBA later reinstated Brown, but he chose to never play in the league. Later, Pacers player and Hall of Famer Reggie Miller, as I just said, considers Brown the greatest player to never play in the NBA. Brown was one of 7 players unanimously selected to the ABA All-Time Team in 1997. He is one of 4 players, the others are Miller, George McGinnis, and Mel Daniels, to have his jersey retired by the Pacers. On February 15, 2013, Rajah Brown was announced as one of the 5 direct inductees to join the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, having been elected by the Hall's ABA committee. He was inducted in September 2013. During his basketball career, Brown served as a Republican on the Indianapolis City Council, County Council for 4 years. He is the father of 7 children. He was diagnosed, unfortunately, with colon cancer back in 1996, and he passed away on March 4th, 1997, which was just 5 days before the passing of the notorious B.I.G. I do remember reading about Rajah Brown when he passed away, and there was very little fanfare when he passed away. What I've read about him, I know that Bill Cosby was a huge fan of his. Bill Cosby was a huge fan of Rajah Brown, and there was a documentary that came out several years ago when Bill Cosby said that Rajah was perhaps the best one-on-one player that he'd ever seen. And, he was a guy that he was doing things in the 70s that you didn't always see with players, like ball fakes, hesitations, hezzy dribbles, and pump fakes, ball fakes, and he had this great all-around game. He could shoot from outside. He could shoot from the mid-range. He could score in the post. He was efficient. He was a capable passer. He really didn't have any weaknesses. He could make these incredible circus shots. He could hang in the air. He was. I think if he was playing today, 50 years later, with the way the game is played now, and the emphasis on one-on-one play and perimeter scoring, I think he could have led the NBA in scoring. If you take a 27, 28-year-old Rajah Brown and put him in today's NBA, I think he'd probably be a top 2-3 player in the NBA, if not the best player in the NBA. And I don't really think that's exaggeration at all. I want to read some quotes from those who watched Rajah Brown and some of the things that they said. Hall of Famer George Gervin, who played in the NBA, said, "You know how they say they can't guard Kobe one-on-one and they can't guard Michael one-on-one? Well, they couldn't guard Rajah Brown one-on-one." Longtime Pacers executive Donnie Walsh said in a 2013 documentary about Rajah Brown, he said, "Jordan, Oscar Robertson, Jerry West, I think he was in that category of player." And that seems to pretty much be the consensus, man. He was that special. Those who watched him play. For his career, he averaged 17.4 points per game, 6.2 rebounds, 3.8 assists per contest. But he averaged over 20 points per game twice. And from 1967 to 1972, his averages were 20.6 points, 7.2 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 47% shooting from the floor, 79% from the foul line, and just a hair under 30% from three-point range back in the 70s and 60s. So, great player, man. Tell me what you guys think.